the Garrett County Board of Education to order. Do we have any public comment on that?
You already looked?
Okay, we don't have any public comment. With that said, we will prepare to move to executive session. So, under the general provisions of Article 3-305B, we are able to move into executive session. Today, we'll be moving into executive session for the following reasons. Under Article 3-305B1, to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, or any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. And under number 9, to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to the negotiations. The topics to be discussed under number 1 is an update regarding a bus driver misconduct situation, an update regarding specific employees who are being considered for tenure, and a review of a decision by a coach relating to a confidential student matter. Under number 9, we will be looking at a discussion regarding negotiation status and updates for Unit 1, Unit 3, and GCAFT. The reason that we are discussing these in closed session rather than open session for the personnel topics is because they relate specifically to confidential employee matters that are not appropriate to discuss in open session. And for collective bargaining, it is because of the very nature of the negotiations process itself. With all that said, is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Woods. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Rinker. Been moved and seconded to go into executive session. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. We are in executive session. Thank you. And come back to order for the reopening of our public session. Will you please rise if you're able, and we'll have a moment of silence, and then our student board member Cheyenne will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we have the approval of the agenda for this meeting. A couple changes will just be under new business, number 7. The budget transfer request will not be considered this month, but we will be considering a resolution supporting student voice regarding school safety. So with that addition, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion to approve and second it, Dr. Sorber and Mr. Woods. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The agenda is approved. Next item is the February 13, 2018 public session minutes. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Motion to approve, is there a second? Moved and seconded, Mr. Woods and Dr. Sorber. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The minutes are approved. Closed session summaries. So sit back and enjoy a story.
Thank you. The Board of Education met in executive session on Tuesday, February 13, 2018 at Central Office in the boardroom at 3:08 p.m. under Authority 3-305 of the General Provisions Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland to discuss the following items: review of minutes, personnel topics pursuant to 3-305B1, legal opinion pursuant to 3-305B7, and collective bargaining negotiation topics pursuant to 3-305B9. Tom Woods made a motion to close the meeting, and this was seconded by Monica Rinker. Thereafter, the board unanimously voted to close the session with a yea vote from Monica Rinker, Charlotte Seabold, Nathan Sorber, and Tom Woods. The closed session began at 3:08 p.m. The board recessed the executive session at 4:05 p.m. The executive session reconvened at 4:10 p.m. The topics discussed and actions taken included the following. Board minutes. The board reviewed the minutes and placed them on the consent agenda for further action in the public session. Legal opinion pursuant to 3-305B7. The board received legal opinion from Brandon Hoover, board attorney, related to an Open Meetings Act complaint received by the board which alleged violations of the Open Meetings Act. Mr. Hoover drafted a letter to the Open Meeting Compliance Board with responses to the topics and in some cases corrective action that will be taken. The board voted to accept Mr. Hoover's letter and recommendation. Tom Woods made a motion to accept the letter and Monica Rinker seconded the motion. The board unanimously voted to approve the letter with a yea vote from Monica Rinker, Charlotte Siebold, Nathan Sorber, and Tom Woods. Personnel topics pursuant to 3-305B1. The board received a professional leave request for Mrs. Barbara Baker. The request was approved and placed on the consent agenda for further action in public session. The board received an update from Dr. Jane Wilderson, Director of Human Resources and Employee Relations, regarding the misconduct of an employee. The employee received a due process hearing and submitted a resignation letter to Dr. Jane Wilderson. The board took this matter into consideration but took no action on this information. Dr. Jane Wilderson and Mrs. Allison Schweitzer, Director of Finance, presented a staffing reconciliation report to the board. The report included a list of employees who have given early notification of intent to retire or separation of service. Collective bargaining negotiation topics pursuant to 3-305B9. The board received information from Dr. Wilderson and Mrs. Schweitzer regarding fiscal year 2019 healthcare benefit options. Dr. Wilderson shared 2 options. Of these options, the board chose a healthcare parameter for negotiations. Tom Woods made the motion, Nathan Sorber seconded the motion. The board unanimously voted to accept the parameter with a yea vote for Monica Rinker, Charlotte Siebold, Nathan Sorber, and Tom Woods. Dr. Wilderson and Mrs. Schweitzer also presented the board with options regarding salary adjustments related to the negotiation process. The board discussed and then voted on its salary parameter for negotiations for the upcoming fiscal year. Tom Woods made the motion, Nathan Sorber seconded the motion. The board unanimously voted to accept the salary parameter with a yea vote from Monica Rinker, Charlotte Siebold, Nathan Sorber, and Tom Woods. The board also received information related to the Garrett County Education Association Bargaining Unit initial proposals from the February 12, 2018 negotiation meetings. The 2 proposals were the GCEA Unit 1 Teachers, Unit 3 Support Bargaining Groups. The board took this matter under consideration but took no action on this information. Nathan Sorber made a motion to adjourn the executive session and Monica Rinker seconded the motion. The board unanimously approved adjourning the executive session at 6 p.m. with a yea vote from Monica Rinker, Charlotte Siebold, Nathan Sorber, and Tom Woods. Board members present included Mr. Paul, President, Dr. Nathan Sorber, Vice President. Board members Mrs. Monica Rinker, Mrs. Charlotte Siebold, and Mr. Tom Woods. Mrs. Barbara Baker, Secretary, Treasurer, Superintendent of Schools, and Mr. Brandon Hoover, Board Attorney, were also present for the meeting. Mrs. Karen DeVore, Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction and Administration. Dr. Jane Wilderson, Director of Human Resources. Mrs. Allison Schweitzer, Director of Finance, were present for part of the meeting. Mrs. Karen Brewer, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent, was present at the meeting for the purpose of taking minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was lovely.
Thank you.
I would let you catch your breath, but
Practiced all day on that.
the next thing is the announcement, so you can
All
talk
right,
to.
thank you. All right, on March 26th, we have parent-teacher conferences. Schools will be closed. On March 27th, Dr. Karen Salmon, Maryland State Superintendent, will visit Garrett County Public Schools. March 30th is Good Friday, schools closed. April 2nd is Easter Monday, schools closed. April 5th is the We Care event at the Clark Building from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. I believe this is our 3rd consecutive year. April 6th is the end of our grading period, and April 21st is our Student Arts Fair at Garrett College. Also want to make sure that I update the public that our request for the approval of the waiver of the governor's executive order of a post-Labor Day start was approved by the Maryland State Board of Education at their February 27th, 2018 board meeting.
And the other thing is the commissioners meeting.
Correct. I believe that we are going to meet, the commissioners had to change our public presentation of our budget, and that has been moved to March 26th, I believe, at 4 p.m.
4:30 is what it says here.
4:30 p.m. That's all I have for that.
Okay. We will move on to recognitions, and Dr. Sorber has our first recognition for the Gold Key Award.
Is Owen out? Is
Owen Seeley?
Owen Seeley.
Owen? That was like Ferris. Here he goes.
Oh, I saw him out there. What time's the commissioner's meeting?
4:30.
There he is. Hi, Owen.
Hi.
This is Dr.
Come
Sorber.
up here with me, get in the limelight. Okay. A Northern Middle School student receives top honors in the Scholastic Writing Contest. Owen Seeley, an 8th grade student at Northern Middle School, recently received the Gold Key Award for his journalism entry, The Rosewood Massacre. Students who receive the Gold Key represent the very best work submitted by local programs. Gold Key works are automatically considered for national level recognition. The Scholastic Art and Writing Awards program is the nation's longest running, largest, most prestigious recognition program for creative teams. Teams in grades 7 through 12 apply in 29 categories of art and writing. Panelists look for works that best exemplify originality, technical skill, and the emergence of a personal voice or vision. So the Garrett County Board of Education would like to present the certificate of recognition to Owen Seeley in honor of this outstanding accomplishment, the Scholastic Art and Writing Awards program. Here's your Gold Key Award.
Very good. And Owen
Would you
is,
like to come on up?
I believe your teacher is here, correct, Owen? Is that? And your mom? Yes. All right. Very nice.
Hi there.
You want to tell us about the piece you wrote? Anything you want to say about your work?
Sure, the Rosewood Massacre was just what it was. It was a small neighborhood in Rosewood, Florida. That was actually it was one of the first thriving African-American towns of the time, and it was actually burned down. And most of its citizens were slaughtered and killed because of a lie told by by a white resident in a nearby town called Sumner.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that with us. We expect big things from you, Owen, in years to come. You want to do it right here? Come right here. Of course. You want to hold this?
Mrs. Seabold has a question.
Is there a copy of your writing somewhere so the board could read it, or?
Could we? Sure.
Oh, it's on, oh, okay. Send it to the board, yeah. Thank you.
library would happily take it.
Okay, we'll take 2 pictures. There's one. Whoa. Way back.
Thank you, Nathan. Whoa.
Get everybody.
Okay, excellent.
All right, here we go.
Congratulations.
Yes, Owen. Congratulations. I would look forward to your writing as well.
Thank you, Owen. And our next item is the Southern Garrett Wrestling Team and Mr. Woods.
Go, boys.
Come on in, boys. Double file, tall guys in back. Short guys in front.
I think I can even save it this time.
Let's just move down. Parents over that way.
We don't have to move this time.
Oh, no. Does he need, Mr.
Back up, boys.
Help with the...
Back up. Tall guys in the back, stand on your tiptoes.
They're all set.
Tom, are you okay if you make pins?
I can't
There
find
you are.
Tom. Where's the
I don't think we have to worry about it.
I think we're okay this time. What do you think?
This is cool. They locked us out.
Everybody says scrunchie. Back up. Yeah, you're welcome. You guys want that good?
Somebody's not. Joey, I can't see you. Now you're out of the picture, Joey. I'm not Clark. Go in the room with Neil, buddy. Here, look at you. There you go.
I don't know if I'm in their way. They're not easy to walk.
Please don't do all right.
All right, well, we got everybody here. It's my great pleasure to be asked, actually granted, as a wrestling guy, I couldn't have asked for a better certificate to give out. So, on February the 10th, 2018, the Southern Garrett High School wrestling team dominated top seed Patterson Middle, 58-15, before knocking off Sparrows Point, 47-30, to capture the Maryland Class 1A dual state championship. It's the second state championship for the Rams and the first since the 1A2H title in 2009. Southern head coach Dave Taylor stated, "We have worked hard all season with this as our goal. The boys went out and wrestled great and would not be denied. The state dual meet is an amazing experience. The 16 best teams in the state in one gym fighting for a state championship. How can it get any better than that?" On top of all of that, the Rams finished their dual meet portion of the season with a record of 35-3, which includes winning the Musselman Duels, the Fort Hill Super Duels, and placing second in the Grindstone Duels at Winters Mill High School, Westminster. The Garrett County Board of Education presents to the Southern Ram wrestling team the certificate of recognition to the team in honor of its accomplishment of outstanding accomplishment in winning the 2018 State Dual Meet Wrestling Class 1A Championship. Obviously, it's a great honor that we're able to do this and present to a wonderful group of young men, many of which I know, many of which I've seen at the Pee Wee level, all the way to this accomplishment, and certainly can't be done without the leadership of a Hall of Fame wrestling coach who makes it even that sweeter. So, congratulations from all of us, especially somebody that loves wrestling as much as I do. We also have certificates for each of you to take as an honor that you deserve. We have one for each of the coaches and one for each of the wrestlers. You just want to call them out now, or you just want to give them all to him when they give them away? Call them out? All right, here we go. Yeah, we'll call them out. Sure. This is your 15 minutes of fame. Coach Dave Taylor.
Thank you, sir.
Eli Ward. Chris Tuzing.
Hey, Chris.
Eli and Chris, who we determined will get a diploma. While we're handing these out, I was the speaker at the banquet, and I listed the seniors, and I forgot 2 of them that would be getting their diploma, so they will definitely be getting them.
Coach Schweitzer.
That one is Jacob Schweitzer.
Jacob Schweitzer.
2 of them.
Yeah, Jacob E and Jacob
Jacob.
Quinn Hyde.
All right.
Didn't see.
Mikey
Mike Green.
Alec Corner.
Alec. Hey, how's it going?
Johnny Titcher.
What's up?
No. Brad Davis.
You've been thinking of this.
Joe Hamilton.
Thanks, Mike
Are they the ones that you got? I think they ate our cookies last time they were here. Do you want a piece? Evidently, you guys are having a paycheck today.
Thank you for this recognition. You've always worked hard, and we appreciate your support, and we appreciate everything you guys do for us. It's a great season, and we're proud of you.
I know.
Evan DeWitt.
Again,
Justin Richter.
Victor Scale.
You just can't have the switch. I'm just kidding.
Would you like a country house out? Sure.
Declan.
Would you like a piece of candy? Right there they are.
Braden, I know you're here.
I actually had that one. I put up wrestling down for
Right here.
She's like, I'll do that one. I said, oh, okay. It's funny because I didn't even have to do that one.
Don't run off. We got one more race. Butter Knight. Not here.
Greg McComas.
Joey.
Does Dan Clark come up with all of us?
These are all Jake.
All of us. Every one of them.
Everybody get one? Photo.
They're not going to fit together. We need candy. Don't hold it over her face.
Chip nose is back.
That's funny.
All right, here we go.
Official one. This one.
Smile.
I'm going to stand up.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank you.
Yeah, the transportation director.
Thanks for coming, guys. Thank you. Congratulations.
Congratulations, guys. Congratulations, coach. Congratulations.
Thanks, parents. Thank you.
It was Kathy that told me about the tree.
Well,
Well, yeah, we should.
we should.
One guy's intelligent.
I've lost, I totally lost one.
Here we go.
It totally didn't help though. Our next presenter is Monica Rinker. She is presenting for the state indoor track winners.
Are they in here? Right, Mrs. Brewer, I believe it was just. Yes. Right, calling for.
Yeah,
Such a long here. That's okay. All you never is the coding.
All right.
Very official.
Hollingsworth. He won the high jump at the Maryland 1A State Indoor Track Meet on Monday, February 19th at Prince George's Sport and Learning Complex. Michael Hollingsworth, a senior, won with a mark of 5 feet 10 inches. Congratulations.
Wow. Let's see that.
We have
Jump over Monica.
And also, we had to recognize, I'll go ahead and read it. If anyone will be here this evening, we have Southern Garrett High School Declan Warner won the 1,600 and 3,200 meters. And it says he's also a senior. He won the 1,600 meter run at 4 minutes 33.65 seconds. The 3,200 meter run in 10 minutes 18.9 seconds. So Southern Garrett High finished with an impressive 5th place in the team standing.
Oh, that's very good.
I'll just give it back to you here to give them.
I think we had one for the coach too.
We do.
He's not here. And then this is your mom.
Yes,
Mom. You can jump over my head. See, she's still done.
Let's put Charlotte out there.
Yeah, I'm sure he could jump over my head.
It was a good experience for sure. And I get to see all the same people. It was fun because most of the meets we go to don't have that many 1A competitors at it. But it's just not many teams around here have indoor track teams. So when we go to Hagerstown, I get to jump against guys that were jumping like 7 feet. Yeah. And I got to train with the 3rd best guy in the nation once over the summer, which was a great experience.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No wonder you're so successful.
It doesn't matter. Okay, thank you.
That's a real big
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Yours?
All right. This is amazing. It is 6 o'clock, and we are right on schedule. It is beautiful. So the RISE Strategic Issues Report.
Yes. I wanted to let the board know and the public know I have received the recommended changes and some edits and some things that need to go in the strategic report. There are several things that my staff need to include. Well, I think we've come up with a timeline. Mr. Paul and I meet on the 29th to review next meeting agenda. We'll have it for his perusal at that point, and then we'll get it on board docs on the 3rd of April for the approval at the 10th. If that timeline works for the board, that would be our next step on the strategic.
For public input.
Well, once you approve it, then we'll get it out for public input. So we'll talk about that on the 10th and how we want to collect that. If we want to do it similarly to how we did the calendar, we'll get it out for the public, then bring it back.
Okay, so it'll be out there for 30 days approximately.
Correct. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good question.
Any other questions? I will say I met with the commissioners in the administrative session on February 20th and updated them on our progress with the strategic plan. So that was appreciated and went well.
Thank you.
It was a quick 5-minute meeting, but it was good.
Thank you.
The draft 2019 superintendent budget. Mrs. Schweitzer.
Presented the draft detail budget. We've presented on January 30th during the work session. There was an overview, a big picture overview of the revenues and proposed expenditures. And this evening, you are given the detail of what all that big picture, what those big picture numbers are made up of. The goal of this budget cycle was to really maintain, not add programs, not delete any programs, so that we're ready and armed once we do have a RISE strategic plan approved by the board so that we can take action. That being said, there are not many changes. The changes that are present, we did add a new activity number 294. That's behavior intervention. It's not a new program. Obviously, we have been doing behavior intervention. However, it's been couched in academic intervention, 232. So we divided those funds. Another item that is different from the FY18 budget is, as the board is aware, there was a reorganization between the finance and food service offices. So the transfer to food service from the general fund is decreased for the FY19 because the one FTE is now on the general fund. This budget does not include the non-recurring cost exclusions that the board has requested of the county commissioners, nor does it include the school construction funding that is requested. Those items are very easily placed in the budget, but at this point, not having met with them, I felt it was just a little bit cleaner. We will add those pages depending on what becomes approved. We also provided for the board this evening a list of the projects that are included in this Activity 700. Ms. Rinker requested that, and we have provided that. There are some items, some of these items are also included in the non-recurring cost exclusions. That being said, if they're funded with the non-recurring cost exclusions, Mr. Swift and his team will go back to the next priority level projects and backfill. Now, these projects were chosen either because of a critical need at the facility, at the building, or it was mandated by law or regulation.
Can I ask you a question about one of those? Mr. Swift, if you're replacing 32 new channel DVRs and 16 cameras at Southern, the question I have about that is, will those relay real-time video, or is that, and the reason I asked that question, in the unfortunate accident in Florida, one of the major problems was they were looking at what they thought was real-time video when actually it was video that had been processed 20 minutes before. That's right. Will this provide real-time video at that exact moment?
Yes, it is. It's a web-based system, so you can view that video from anywhere as long as you have the IP address of that camera.
Okay.
So, and we're working with the Sheriff's Department right now to see about putting those at the 911 side.
Is this something that you anticipate doing at all the schools eventually?
We've already done it at all the schools. There's only 2 schools that don't have it, Grantsville and Southern. Okay. That's why they're in here now. And Swan Meadow. Okay. So that once we do that, then they'll all be on the same platform.
Right.
We have a rotation schedule in the preventative maintenance plan.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem that obviously that situation would have been handled differently had they known, the police and everyone else, responders, know that they were looking at real-time video rather than stored video. Great.
Question time. Any other questions at this point?
So certainly the board did just receive these, and so if there are any questions between now and the next meeting, Ms. Baker and I encourage you to please send them along to her, and the cabinet and myself will do our best to answer them as quickly as possible so so that when we do come back in April, we can be ready to ask for action.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next item is the Swan Meadow Attendance Area Review Committee. That would hurt.
Okay, good evening.
Good evening.
The committee members are listed to review the attendance area for Swan Meadow. Myself, Ms. Penny Proudfoot, Dr. Jane Wilderson, Dr. Phil Lauber, Ms. Connie Uphold, the principal, and parent Javon Helmy. We met to discuss the area and also the enrollment. So the next slide is just a snapshot of the enrollment going back the current year plus the 4 years previous. With the addition of kindergarten after the school year 13-14, you're looking roughly an average of about 42 to 44 students per year. And I also broke it down by the grade. So as the committee looked at it, after addition of the kindergarten, the enrollment has remained very consistent or constant for that time period. With regard to the capacity of the building, the state rated capacity of the building is 69 students. So there you're looking right now currently at about a 64% capacity for Swan Meadow. The next thing we looked at within the committee is the out-of-area transfer requests. And went back 2 years to look at how many students wanted to come into Swan Meadow versus how many wanted to go out. And the ins and outs versus they're pretty even, with the majority of requests being Yoklades to go in and out of. All right. We talked a little bit about transportation. Currently, there's 3 school buses that provide service to Swan Meadow from the current identified attendance area, and we also have some car riders or students who are transported in private vehicles. So we discussed the transportation. The considerations that we discussed going forward to look at for Swan Meadow is to expand the attendance area in order to increase enrollment through a comprehensive redistricting plan to be adopted by the Board of Education. As I indicated before, there are open seats at Swan Meadow based on the capacity. In order to, if we felt to move the capacity to 85% as an example, we could order a comprehensive redistricting plan that would probably not only affect Swan Meadow, but Yoklades and maybe Broadford and Crellin. So we could order that if that was something that we wanted to discuss. We could eliminate, going back to the outer areas, there was some discussion about the outer areas and the way the current procedure is written with parents listing daycare. When it comes to Swan Meadow, we talked about eliminating the requests altogether for students who want to attend Swan Meadow. And we also talked about just adding it as a list of approved reasons. In other words, to get around the listing as daycare to go to Swan Meadow. So we discussed that as a consideration. We also talked about creating an additional transportation area outside of the current attendance zone with the 3 current school buses. Those school buses start outside the area and they work their way into the area to pick up students, drop off at the school, and then come on into Oakland. So knowing that those buses do other areas of the county, it was possible to expand that a little bit to bring more students into Swan Meadow. So we discussed that. And then we also talked about this, the attendance areas identified and consider with the current RISE plan that's going on and how that might all come together. So the committee recommendation at this point in time, knowing that the RISE plan and all that is still out there and still to be determined, in order to ensure equity and fairness to all schools and ensure current procedures are followed, no changes should be made at this time to specifically accommodate Swan Meadow. In other words, we're saying if we did these things for Swan Meadow, it would create some unfairness for the other schools because ultimately they would say, well, what about us, so on and so forth. So at this particular point, after the committee met, is to hold pat for now until we can see where things go going forward. Okay?
And I just want to make one point of clarification back on the enrollment data. And I apologize because I did review this also. We have school year 18-19 as the last one. That is the current enrollment, correct? 17-18. Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize. I believe that was what you noticed. Yes, that's an error. That's our current enrollment.
Other questions? Okay.
We do have several members of the
Anyone else want to say anything from the
I believe
committee?
Mr. Helms is here. Did anybody have any additional from the committee? Anything else you wanted to say?
I just wanted to ask, when we originally saw this, I think we just know what we were opening, but this notion that some of the area right around the school was not
Correct.
in the you could live right next to the school and not go to Swan Meadow. I just wondered why the committee didn't discuss like just a more modest. I know you were talking about really fixing like with Yacht Glades and others,
Right.
but why not? Were there not more a modest little expansion of the district just to make a little more sense?
I think it goes back to if we make one little section for that, then I get calls from parents that live right outside the Yacht Glades Broadford who, in other words, it's just going to, if we do it here, then how do we not tell the next group of parents that we can't do it for that zone also, with regard to the attendance zone?
Yeah.
Okay? That's what it comes back to, is if we do it for one, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense if if the recommendation is weighting as part of the overall plan. I mean, just to be, kind of transparent, whatever our discussions are. But I still think that it doesn't make sense as far as an area, whether it's. I mean, I would just love us to be in a situation where we weren't kind of having to put the out-of-area request in, if we could accommodate people that were kind of naturally in that space. But I guess if that's what the committee thinks we should wait this time.
And I think there are a few families on that one road that do go to Yacht Glades, correct? So then they would then have to fill out an out-of-area to go to Yacht Glades, I think was the reasoning.
Okay.
We can redistrict if you want to do that, right?
The paper's here. Don't say this. I'm just talking.
But I think some of this, I'm making an assumption here, but I think a lot of this will be possibly addressed in your RISE plan going forward with some of this stuff.
Anything else? All right. We will take a 15-minute break.
Because we're ahead.
And then we'll stay here on schedule.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Back. We're only 5 minutes late. Our first policy and procedure is policy GCC, Employment of Non-Administrative Professional Employees Policy. Mrs. DeVore will be presenting this one.
This is your second read on this, and the changes were made that we discussed at the last board meeting regarding this. I want to just read the definition. Non-administrative professional refers to certified and/or licensed positions which include but are not limited to teachers, specialists, counselors, school psychologists, managers, and/or social workers. Non-administrative professional excludes certified positions such as directors, supervisors, principals, and assistant principals. Just to clarify, because we had that conversation the last time. The other things are fairly self-explanatory. We had already, we changed some titles and the word teacher to non-administrative professional. We discussed that the last time. And the statement that begins with, however, if the superintendent, we discussed that at the last meeting. So that's it as far as the policy. And in the procedure, we brought that same definition over, changed a typo on the word time Again, some title changes. Changing Director of Elementary / Middle to just Elementary Education. And statement number 4 that's in red is the same as the statement on the policy. That was kind of short and sweet and quick, but we had already discussed it.
So did we do this one at our last meeting? Because I couldn't find it on our agenda at our last policy meeting.
2 meetings ago.
Right, and there wasn't, did we have the policy? I had written on mine that we didn't have the policy with us at that time, that we just had the procedure and you were going to see if there was a policy. So was this out? Was this out for online, like we put policies?
Policy and procedure were on the January 9th board meeting.
I think it was the definitions, maybe that's what your note had to do with that, I'm not sure.
You're saying normally it's brought to policy before a meeting, is that correct, Charlotte? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
But it was brought to the full board on January 9th.
Okay. And we asked, at that point, we asked for different wording. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that was part of the definition.
And the definition was added.
Correct. It looks like most of the other changes were there.
Okay, so this, and the point is, however, if this is the one where we're saying that number 4, the policy says, the selected non-administrative professional applicant may be notified by the Human Resources Office of the recommendation for employment following the interviewing process. The appointment will be temporary pending final board approval. An effort will be made to affect board. That doesn't make sense. And then going on, approval prior to the employee beginning work. However, if the superintendent deems that it is in the best interest of the school system for the non-administrative professional to commence employment, the superintendent is authorized to make an interim appointment, which will then be subject to approval by the board at its next meeting. So how is that different from what the sentence up above says? And
that wording, to be honest, it didn't read smoothly with me either, but it was previous wording, so.
Well, I think we fixed previous wording.
But it says an effort will be made to effect board approval prior to the employee beginning work, meaning the superintendent will attempt to get the board's approval prior to the employee
Yeah, I think one sentence has to do with the appointment, and the second sentence has to do with the actual commencing of work. The however sentence is that they could commence work before that approval if it's needed.
Remember, we talked about that the last time because of the turnover in the specifically in the summertime when we appoint a teacher, then that might open another one, and that we can continue to do the hiring so that we're not held up.
Right, but by law, aren't we supposed to make by law, isn't it? Because by law, there's
Right, you would still be making approval of the board. That's
subject to
right.
After they've already been on the job.
It's a possibility.
It's possible.
It's a possibility, but I do believe in most of the hiring that we really want this policy and procedure to affect is April, May, June, July, really, so that we can, get positions posted. Most of the employees who are non-administrative professionals would not actually begin work until mid-August. So they would not begin work. We would get a temporary interim appointment for the whatever teacher, then we could post that teacher and begin, if we fill that with maybe an internal move up or something, then we can post that position and continue the process. That's the whole purpose. It would be very unlikely that they would actually begin work before the board approval.
And if you remember, I think the reason this was because of the email votes.
Correct.
To the interim.
Right.
Right. That we're Open Meetings Act trying to avoid those. Do you want to change any language or amend anything?
I guess not.
Okay. Is your motion to approve GCC policy? So moved. Is there a second? Second. Moved and seconded. Dr. Sorber and Mr. Woods. Discussion?
I do, just for clarification, where it says what Charlotte just read, and effort will be made to effect board approval prior to the employee beginning work. Effect board approval. I don't know.
What does that say?
The wording is kind of, I don't know. It's not
Like
very
obtain with.
You can say obtain.
It's not very clear for one thing.
Secure.
We could say
obtain.
secure. An effort will be made to secure board approval prior to the employee beginning work. However, if that isn't possible, an interim appointment.
Well, I'd have an effort we made. I think that we should know, not like just an effort, like.
Well, I think that's the whole purpose of this one is that.
But I think it's to be more clear that an effort.
With notification to the board?
Is that something you'd like to add?
Something a little more clear.
Amendment to that sentence?
Okay, I would like to amend the sentence beginning with however.
Do you want to do that sentence before an effort will be made?
Yeah, I think that's the one, the appointment.
Okay.
You want to take out an effort will be made to effect. You want to take that phrase out. An effort
Reword it. Right.
And you want it to say.
Okay, we're talking about two different things. I thought we'd already cleared that up.
Do you want to do, let's do both of them on the one, but put the obtain in there.
Okay. An effort will be made to obtain board approval prior to the employee beginning work. However, if the superintendent deems that it is best interest of the school system for the non-administrative professional to commence employment, the superintendent is authorized to make an interim appointment with notification to the board, which will then be subject to approval.
With notification to the board, then?
You want that added?
Yeah. That's the motion, right?
Yes, that's the amendment.
Okay, so the motion for amendment here, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, so we're adding the word obtain to board approval and with
notification to the board.
You got that down?
I do. Mm-hmm.
And that'll also be made on the procedure page.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, so this is on the amendment. Any further discussion there? All those in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Okay, the amendment's approved. Now we have the full policy before us again. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the full policy with as amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay. I'm so confused.
Okay, 3-1. It is approved.
Thank you.
Next one is EHAA, Privacy and Protection of Digital Administrative Data Policy. Thank you, Mrs. Schweitzer. There you are.
Yes.
I'm in January's meeting because I
Me
was
too,
looking
I
at
was
the other
too.
one.
I'm like, where am I? I couldn't find where I was. I did the same thing.
Okay, so this is the second read of this policy and procedure as well. The changes are as a result of the finance, HR, and food service transitioning to a new ERP software system. So the only change to the policy is the addition in the purpose that the Board of Education expects that all employees will act in a responsible, civil, ethical, and appropriate manner when accessing GCPS administrative data. The significant changes are in the procedure with the form. For all intents and purposes, this was completely recreated to align with our new data roles in data, functional, and workflow roles in our new system, software system. So we are asking for action this evening.
Yeah, let's get the motion and then we'll discuss. Is there a motion to approve EHAA?
So,
Dr. Sorber, is there a second?
Second.
Second. And moved and seconded. And now we'll have discussion. Mrs. Rankin.
Digital administrative data, you said that's for, what'd you say, HR, finance, food services? And what actually is digital administrative data? Is it like their record keeping?
It can be all of payroll, all of accounts payable, accounts receivable. It's a, I don't want to say it's administrative data because that's what you're asking, but it's all of the non-student data.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked is so I understand. It says under procedures, G, upon signing application for administrative data access, the Director of Finance will review all staff requests for administrative data, which I understand that. But should IT be on there too because it's so much digital stuff, or not being IT? Or not? Or should it just be directly?
No, IT supports the system.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood.
The information that is in the system is really the Director of Finance should direct who has access to that.
Yes.
If I may, IT will actually make the changes in the system, so it's very important that they kind of stay away from the decision making of who gets to see what, because we have power to actually flip the switch.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because it was so much IT that IT had. That was
so the director completes that form and sends it to IT. IT actually physically makes the change in the software system.
Okay, that's more understanding then. Thank you.
Further questions?
Since it involves human resources data as well, is the human resources director a part of that decision-making process?
It's sort of like you either have HR access or you don't with the payroll. So it's a case could be made that the HR director should have access. However, the roles have been built in such a way that the data roles have been built because they're functional data and workflow roles. So the data roles have been built in such a way that really the only people that have access to the HR records are in finance or HR. So the HR director would have access to that hiring of that person.
I guess as you grant permission for people to use that, is that something that should be inclusive of the HR director or only inclusive of yourself? I mean, I'm just asking the question. I don't really know the answer to my question.
Well, previously in the SIM system, there was a portion that HR approved, and there was a portion that finance approved. When we moved to the Tyler system, it was built in such a different way that we made the decision early on that one person or one role with a backup, which is the staff accountant, would be able to appropriately build all the separation of duties and the backup, and so that fell to the director of finance, and so that's sort of why we went in that direction.
Yeah, just by definition, it seemed like it should be two groups. I mean, as long as you guys are fine with it, I'm fine with it. I just had the question.
Further questions?
No, thank you.
All those in favor of the motion to approve EHAA, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. It is approved. Thank you. And JRB. Next one.
So this is the student data policy. And again, in the policy, we only added that same exact statement, substituting student data for administrative data. And then the procedure changed. There were a couple of grammatical errors. We had to update some of the policies. They had been brought over from our old numbering system to the new lettering system, as well as there is a new form. And that was substantially the largest change for that procedure was the form. And it aligns more closely with that of the administrative data by explaining at the top portion where the staff member would be signing. It really outlines very clearly which policies we're asking them to uphold. And again, this is the second read and we are asking for action.
Is there a motion to approve JRB?
I make the motion.
Motion by Mrs. Junker. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Seabold, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. It is approved. Thank you. GBEF, Dr. Wilson will be presenting employee use of social media.
Good evening. At the February meeting, I brought forward this policy and procedure. So the policy for social media, the changes were very minor. It was looking at underneath number 2, personal use of social media, to have a definition of inappropriate communication. Therefore, what we did in the revision is to actually look at underneath the procedure, to look at, one second. On number 4 of the definitions, that it included improper or inappropriate communication. So the definition was placed there to identify number H. Okay? So, are there any questions with policy, sexual harassment, or the procedures with the revisions? Because we are asking for action this evening since it's second read.
This is employee use of social media, right?
Yes. Social media. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I expressed at the last meeting in the procedures, I didn't want us to be in a position where there was a chance we would be punishing teachers for expressing their political beliefs on their social media sites. And I think the definition here in H that outlines inappropriate communication probably narrows that in an appropriate way. So I appreciate you for doing that, because that's I think that's important. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve GBEF, employee use of social media policy?
Yes, so moved.
Motion by Dr. Sorber. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Woods. Discussion?
Questions last month. They were answered.
Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. It is approved, so that's GBEF. Now GBAA, sexual harassment policy, Dr. Wilson.
Okay, for the sexual harassment policy, there were, again, few changes. The one in the policy was to make sure that this policy aligned with all the others, having purposes, backgrounds, definition, and policy. So it really is the sections A through D, just to make it consistent along all the formats. So that was the change in the policy. In the procedures, the revisions were really addressing the way that sexual harassment is reported. It was by adding the Title IX coordinator to comply with the Office of Civil Rights and the Annotated Code of Maryland. as well as a legal reference 4-205C, which spoke to that change. So are there any questions with the sexual harassment policy or procedure?
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve GBAA sexual harassment policy?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Sorber, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Woods. Moved and seconded to approve the sexual harassment policy. Further questions or discussion?
So now we are in compliance, correct?
Yes.
With all this?
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
We will be.
I mean, because things keep changing, so we have to constantly keep changing some of the procedures.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my only comment is that, in addition to being in compliance, which is always a goal for us, this is also a moment for us to reaffirm in the current context of the Me Too movement and everything else that Garrett County is not a place where sexual harassment of any kind is tolerated, and that strengthens this policy, but this is a place where we can learn and work without fear of these type of activities. So it's a good moment to reaffirm that as well.
Thank you.
Other questions?
How do we now educate staff beginning of school in sexual harassment policy?
Well, we actually had safe school videos, okay? However, with the revisions, we will make sure, because this was such a change, with now having a process, Title IX coordinator, and a form to fill out, we will make sure that that's done in a different method. It will be probably, again, we'll talk about what that format looks like, but possibly something like making sure everybody has the form, just like we did the retraining on all the policy and procedures that we put our staff through in January, February, and March. So it'll be an update. It'll make sure people know where those forms are, really articulating that policy.
Likely through principals at A&S, and then making sure that it's pushed out to them. And
Sure, the first couple days of school.
Yes.
And you'll use the policy, the procedures, the educational tool to so that they understand what correctly is sexual harassment. Okay, good.
Other questions, discussion? All those in favor of the motion to approve GBAA sexual harassment policy, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. It is approved. We'll take a break for 1 second to see if there's any public comment. Cheyenne, could you please check? 1 second.
Rich was right.
We don't have to. We do have some public comments. So, Evan West will be speaking first. You want Heather? Okay. Heather Roth will be addressing us first. So comments are always welcome during our public comment. We're pleased to receive comments and ideas from the public pertaining to our policies, procedures, and practices. We ask that comments be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per individual. There will be no discussion or action at the meeting, but they will be considered a future meeting. Issues that are specific to individual employees should be referred to the immediate supervisors, and rude, slanderous, or threatening remarks or other behavior that is disruptive or interferes with the order of the meeting is not prohibited. Good reading, huh? Okay, Heather, thank you.
Hey, I think you all know me, but I'm Heather Roth. I'm a teacher in Garrett County. I'm also a parent of a first grader and hopefully next year a pre-K student. I'd like to talk to you tonight about the FY 2019 budget. At your February meeting, Mrs. Rinker was the first to mention that there's a need to request the Board of Garrett Commissioners to fund above the maintenance of effort. She was met with responses such as, well, they probably won't give it to us, so we shouldn't even ask, or the commissioners have already said that the maintenance of effort is their bottom line. So why ask? May I suggest some whys? How about 3,815 whys? Your whys are our 3,815, give or take a few, students enrolled in the Garrett County Public Schools. Students who are in kindergarten classes of 30 and first grade classes of 28. Students who are attending class in buildings that are in serious need of renovation, that are being bandaged with Band-Aids. Students who are being taught by teachers whose workloads have increased due to cuts in staffing. students whose options to take electives have been cut dramatically over the past few years, high school students who are no longer able to take masonry, electronics, or childcare classes, among others, high school students whose only option of foreign language is Spanish, middle school students who are no longer taught basic skills needed for independent living through family and consumer science classes. What more reason do we need than our students? As a parent of young children, I worry about what my children will be offered by the time they hit middle school and high school. How large will their classes be when more and more teaching positions disappear? How clean and safe will their buildings be when more custodial and maintenance positions are lost through attrition? This is a very real concern, not just for me, but for many of my friends who have young children. Now, my husband and I are committed to staying in Garrett County for the long haul. But what about the families who are not? Will we lose even more enrollment due to the lack of options we offer our students compared to other countries and surrounding states? Will parents choose to homeschool their children rather than place them in a kindergarten class with 29 other children? What harm will it do to prepare a budget that meets our students' needs and present that budget to the commissioners? As elected officials, it is the duty of this Board of Education to provide our students with the best education possible, not the bare minimum. If the commissioners refuse to fund the budget, then let that onus be on them. Show the students of Garrett County that you are willing to do anything in your power to provide them with the best. How many of us would walk into a restaurant and ask the manager to make sure we get only the minimum in quality of service, and then leave that restaurant comparing it to five-star dining experiences? Would you ask a hotel manager to ensure that your room has been cleaned according to minimal standards of cleanliness and request minimal accommodations, then leave and review your stay with that of the one at the Hilton last week? This is what we're doing to our students when we ask for only the minimum or maintenance of effort. We are asking for and providing the bare minimum, but comparing our students' performance to others across the state and the country who have been given five-star dining and accommodations. Staff members throughout the county go above and beyond for our students every day. We do the very best we can with fewer and fewer resources each year, and our students continue to rise to the occasion. At some point, we will no longer be able to do what we do with what we are given, and I believe this point is closer than any of us want to admit. We cannot keep doing more with less. Please be brave enough to ask the Board of Commissioners to fully fund the needs of our students. The minimum is no longer acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. West.
Good evening. I'm Evan West. You guys know me. I'm the UNICEF director for Garrett County Education Association. And although Heather was too humble to include it in her remarks, it's I think important to point out that she's also the Garrett County Teacher of the Year, which is no small thing. It was a finalist for the State Teacher of the Year. So I'm going to piggyback basically on Heather's message, and I promise we didn't actually coordinate this. I saw Heather's comments today, but this is part of a larger sort of feeling that's growing amongst our membership specifically, and GCEA is trying to organize that sentiment in a way that's clearly communicated and communicable to you and also to the Board of Commissioners. To that end, yesterday we went live with a petition that essentially echoes what Heather was mentioning in her remarks. I'll read you the petition in just a moment. But I will say that we had a couple technical difficulties with it, and technology is supposed to make our lives so much better and easier and quicker and the rest of it. I have a few unfortunate members that, because of the way this program was set up, received that confirmation that they had signed a petition 14 times. So they got 14 emails, even though they only signed it once. I checked with the administrator of the service that we use for our petitions. Those people were actually only counted once. What happened was there were people that signed that were actually different people, so we actually lost their signatures because it looked like it was the same person trying to sign more than once. So as of about 15 minutes ago, we are at 80 signatures on that. I'd like to say that we have about 30 more that just sort of got lost to the vagaries of the internet. In any case, the petition reads this way. I'm sorry, I don't have bifocals. I should have gotten them. Garrett County educators have faced increasingly difficult working conditions over the past several years, along with increases in healthcare costs and no meaningful pay raises. Quite a few take home less than they did 10 years ago. In spite of declining enrollment, class sizes are increasing. Students come with more needs, and there are fewer staff to assist them. Workload requirements for educators have increased dramatically at the local, state, and national level. In short, educators are continually being asked to do more with less. This can't go on. Educators' working conditions are students' learning conditions. It's time for the Garrett County Board of Education to go to bat for our educators and the students they work with by going beyond asking for the minimum level of funding, known as maintenance of effort or MOE, from the county commissioners. And it's time for the commissioners to do their part and fund the board at a level that ensures that educators and students have what they need and feel valued. By signing this petition, you're letting our local elected officials know that you think our students and our educators are worth more than the minimum. And so what you all, and I have copies of this that I'll leave for each of you that bear my signature, and although I'm not one of your constituents, I work for them. The message that is intended to go to the elected board and also the commissioners will read this way. Garrett County educators are struggling every day to do more with less. We need our local elected officials to have their backs. After all, educators' working conditions are students' learning conditions. Maintenance of effort funding only makes the problems worse. It's time to let our students and educators know that they're worth more than the minimum. Before I conclude, I will say that you have executive level staff that are working really hard to do everything they can to find spaces in the budget so that those needs can be met. I don't want it to sound like the budget that has been presented to you by your staff is an irresponsible budget. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that that it is once your executive staff presents you with that budget, it's yours to do with what you feel is appropriate. I also don't want it to sound like we don't feel like this elected board has been supportive of its staff over the course of the time that you've been on this board. Okay, I think in many, many meaningful ways it has been the case, and that we've all looked at sort of we've all sort of looked at this problem from the perspective of scarcity. And I think it's time to change that perspective. I think it's time for us to look at this from the perspective of possibility, and that there is really no danger in saying we want the best possible solutions for our staff and for our students, and to ask those that provide the resources to make that possible to do what's in the best interest of this school system, its students, and its educators. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will return then to our policies and procedures. BC, our ethics policy, this is procedure.
That's correct. This is actually a review. It's a procedure that we're reviewing to share with you. Again, we changed this to make sure that we had the same format, the purpose, the background, and definitions. So that was one revision. And then also in section 2, the criteria for selection of the ethics panel's members, we updated, as well as the procedures for filling the vacancies for the committee. So, so tonight what I'm asking you to do is to approve the procedures because the procedures have to be, once it's approved by the board according to the annotated code, section 5819, then your approval of these procedures then would go to the State Board of Commissions ethics panel for their approval.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How often does it have to go to the state board for their approval?
Anytime there are revisions.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it had to be revised every so many years, just whenever we have a revision.
No, whenever there are revisions, the State Board of Commissions, the panel has to approve those revisions.
Okay.
So you're just asking for approval to send it to the state board?
That's correct.
This is kind of a complete workover of what we did have, correct? In that the makeup of the committee is complete.
It is. The last time we actually had the committee was 2009.
Right.
In 2009, however, certainly there haven't been any issues. So normally, if there are issues that are brought forward based on ethics, then the panel gets back together. But like I said, the last time the board was in session, or the board was in the panel, was 2009. So we want to make sure that those people are still willing to be on the board, serve on this panel, as well as having a process in place to fill the vacancies, since, again, those people might not want to continue on the panel.
Is there a motion to approve the procedure? She was saying that's what you do,
procedure.
I'm just, typically we don't approve procedure, but she's saying we need to approve.
We have to have approval to be able to submit it to the State Board of Commission Ethics Panel.
Is there
submit it?
That would be the policy and the procedure.
They would both go forward. The policy's not having any changes.
Right. That's correct.
So, motion to second? Okay. Mr. Woods and Dr. Swerwer, approving this for submission to the Ethics Commission. Yeah, okay.
For approval.
Approval, okay. And who's it going to, the Ethics?
Ethics, the State Ethics Commission.
State Ethics Commission, that's what it is. Thank you. Okay, further discussion? All those, oh yeah, go ahead.
So as Ms. Seabolt said, the policy and procedure will both go to them. So if we have some change in the procedure, normally isn't there a change for policy?
No, there wasn't a change in the procedure, or excuse me, the policy at all. The only changes were in section 2, number 2, and number 3 of the procedure.
The policy was redone in 2015. Did it go in then to be approved?
I think we did. I think I remember that discussion.
I see it was revised on here, April 14, 2015. I do see which. Well, it does say, formally 175 adopted 9/11/2012, revised 4/14/2015, comma, approved by the State Ethics Commission on June 24, 2015.
Is that on the policy?
That's on the procedure.
It's not on the policy.
It's on the policy, okay. It's on the procedure.
Seems like they both have to have that on the...
And that's what we'll make sure. I mean, so we will submit both the policy and the procedure to the Ethics Commission.
Okay, further questions? All those in favor of the motion to approve the procedure going to the Ethics Commission, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. It is approved to go to the Ethics Commission. Thank you. JEBA, pre-kindergarten enrollment policy. This is Mrs. Crawford.
Good evening. This is the second time we've brought this to the board, and so we are looking for action tonight, if possible. Looking at the policy, we did put it in the proper A, B, C, D order, and essentially all this is really saying is that we will provide a seat for a 4-year-old if they are 4 by September 1st of the year they're enrolling. On the procedure, were there any questions on that? Okay. On the procedure, we did make some changes there. Mr. Woods caught the extra LY there on the initial, that was changed. And all of the changes that you see there were there previously during the read. The only thing that we did add, because there was discussion about the transportation. So if you look under B, student selection, the very last line says transportation will be provided according to the Garrett County Public Schools Policy 851.4. So that was the one thing that we did change.
Yeah, because that was...
Because it was a little wordy, I guess is the word I will say. But anyway.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve JEBA pre-kindergarten enrollment policy?
I have another question.
get the motion and then we can discuss.
Okay, sure.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Mr. Woods and Dr. Sorber. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I think with the procedure, I was looking at the procedure, and I'm not sure how, okay, where does it say all 4-year-olds? It talks about,
Right at the very
says
student eligibility.
Right, it says 4-year-olds on September 1st of the enrollment year.
That's
right. Okay, then it starts talking about how they're going to be chosen. Like, does everybody have to send in their income even though they're not trying? I mean, before it was income based. Now we're saying it's not income based. But the spots will go to the people that qualify in that area, and if somebody is not have the income based, if they don't fall under that, then their child might go to another. Those would be the first to be taken, right? The income based.
Enrollment is still income based.
Okay.
Okay. That's the first thing you look at, because they want to make sure that those students who maybe did not have the opportunity that other students had would get their seats first. Then if it fills up, those students who are the extra folks who do not meet that income eligibility then would either fill the seats up till the room was full, or they would be offered a seat at the school closest to their home school.
Okay, my problem is when I read it, and maybe it's just me, but when I read it, I don't understand the fact that any 4-year-old can come. I still see the income and the...
Well, that's the law. The income is the law that we have to follow. So it has to be first. It has to be.
Right, I understand that. I'm fine with that. I just want the other kids to know that they can come. And where does that say? That
will that be
that there'll be
I think I see
guidelines to ensure equal access.
Is it under student selection?
If you look under student selection,
procedure student selection.
Students that do not meet the automatic enrollment criteria, okay, which is above under C, or the income eligibility criterion will be given an empty seat in the home origin school. If there are no empty seats in the home origin school, then the students will be given an empty seat in the school nearest their home school. Please note that homeless children will be automatically eligible even if the enrollment exceeds 20, because you do try to keep the pre-K classroom at 20. Okay? And then we said the transportation will be provided according to the Garrett County Public School policy. So those students, we have 21 open seats that were never filled.
Okay.
So everybody was offered a seat. That's their option.
If they applied.
If they applied, that's correct. And we want them to apply.
Right.
Everybody that will.
And I just wasn't feeling, I see down in selection, but I just had a feeling that the first part of it doesn't really say that. It talks about limited English, it talks about homelessness, and it talks about prior participation. It said that they are automatically enrolled into the kindergarten program.
And that's by the law. See, that's what we have to go by.
Right.
So some of this wording is kind of like what the law says wording should be. Is that correct? Like
that is
saying
correct.
the homelessness,
Right, and I
English language proficiency,
yes.
Prior participation in a Head Start or Even Start program, and the reason it says that is because they only do offer income eligible seats. So you know if they've come from that program that they were an income eligible child. You know that, unless things have changed, but we still have to look at those things.
So the main reason that this came about is because of the House Bill 684, correct?
Yes.
So we're in compliance. We're changing.
Yes, exactly.
But I do have one more question, kind of piece back. I understand what Charlotte's asking. I get that. But on that same sentence, you said students that do not meet the automatic enrollment criteria or the income eligibility criteria will be given an empty seat in the home origin school. Then it says if there are no empty seats available in the home origin school, students will be given a spot in an empty seat in the school nearest their home school. I get that. This part is a little tricky. like we need more wording or something or change. It says, please note that the homeless child. Well, it makes you think that we're just targeting homeless children.
Well, and we have to, because there are many laws that protect homeless children.
Okay, but let me come from it as a parent that lives here in Garrett County, doesn't know the House bill and all that. Like, I understand why the wording you have in here is from this, but if you're just a parent that doesn't look at that, you look at that, it makes you think kind of that it's only for a homeless child. Like, is there any way we can add other words or switch it? Because this way it says, please note the homeless child will be automatically eligible. I don't know. It's just...
Well, the thing is, here's how you have to look at that, is number one, we try to keep our seats at 20.
Correct.
Because that's what they prefer.
Ideally for one teacher.
Yes. That's what we try to do. And so we try not to go above that.
Correct.
Unless we have to. And the only time we have to is if it's a homeless child or an income-based child, then we would have to. Now, we do everything we can not to have to do that, but there are times we do. And so that's why that statement's in there, because we have to cover the homeless students. That is one of the items that the State Department looks at, that the federal government, USDE looks at as well, is that we are covering those homeless kids, that they are getting a place no matter what, because they have to have a seat.
Okay, so let me rephrase. So under the beginning, under C, when you have automatic enrollment criteria, we've got 3 things on there listed. We've got limited English proficiency and limited English proficient, homelessness, prior participation. So shouldn't we have all 3 of those on there, not just homelessness worded, because that's our automatic criteria? Should it say all 3 items, just to think?
But that's related to if the seats are over 20.
Okay.
Okay? Homelessness is the only one that relates to if the seats would go over 20.
But maybe okay, I see what you're saying now, but maybe we need to make it a little bit more clear.
Might you suggest how that would be?
I don't know, I think it should be a little
Brandon,
more.
do you have a suggestion?
What I would suggest, so that it would alleviate fears of any parents that were singling out homeless children, we could say, please note that pursuant to Maryland law, homeless children will be automatically eligible.
Okay.
Does that sound all right?
It's making it look like if I had a child coming into kindergarten and I seen that, it just, more friendly. Clear, understanding.
Okay, with that, this is pre-K.
Please
So if we change that, please note pursuant to Maryland law that homeless children will be automatically eligible even if the enrollment exceeds 20 or more students.
I think you just say automatically eligible, period. That's what he said.
Is that what you said? I'm sorry, okay.
But with the Maryland law, yes. Because that explains why we have that
So it would
wording
be
in
period
there.
after eligible, and the rest is not there.
Well,
I think that's fine, or I think it's fine to keep.
I would leave the rest because I think that clarifies why it's there.
Yeah, the exception's there for a reason.
Right.
People need to know that if it's 20 or more students, that a homeless child will automatically be eligible. That will not, some people might not like.
Right,
some
but
people
give
like
the
that,
reason
but
why.
that's the law.
Just so you understand, so what we understand is a
Because we do
parent.
get questions when they see more than 20 students, they will say, why does this classroom have more than 20? And we have it here, that is why. There will be a homeless student there. Thank you, I agree. I think we should keep that, but add the pursuant to that.
Yes, because that explains why this is on here.
And then leave the rest the same.
Correct.
Thank you, Brandon, for your help. So, do we have to fix that and come back next time, or can we
No,
just
that's the
make that?
procedure.
Improve it.
Okay, great.
That's the procedure, so it's fine with that.
Pardon me?
Never mind. I said in 3.
Sorry.
All right, our motion is on the policy. Any other questions there? Okay.
Again, it's mostly because of this bill, House Bill 8684.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor of the policy JEBA, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? It is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then when you make the changes, you'll send it to us so we can see it.
Don't go anywhere.
We have to do some retirements.
Oh.
That's Title I.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about those. Sorry.
So we're looking at 341.4 and 341.41 Title I School Student Transfer Option Policy and Procedure.
And those we have asked to retire or sunset due to the fact that that was the recommendation that I received from my director at MSBE on Title I.
And I just want to clarify, when No Child Left Behind came out,
Correct.
all of Title I was all about the student transfer option.
Yes.
And that, what you're saying is no
gone.
longer an option for parents under Title I.
Under the Every Student Succeeds Act.
So that's why you're recommending their retirement.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, is there a motion to retire 341.4?
So moved.
That's a motion. Is there a second? Second. So Mrs. Siebold and Dr. Sorber. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. So that one is retired. And then the supplemental education services policy.
Exactly the same reason.
No longer offer.
No longer something that we offer through the change in law.
Okay. Is there a motion to retire 341.5 Title I supplemental educational services policy? Please say
Motion moved.
Motion is Monica. Second, Charlotte. So it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. It is retired.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now you're excused.
Thank you. Thank you.
Our next item for is new business, and under new business we have resolution supporting student voice regarding school safety resolution, and Cheyenne will be presenting this one.
Before I present the resolution, Ms. Baker asked me to give a little bit of background on how and why this came about. So before I start, I want to give you all a few statistics. There have been 18 school shootings since January 1st of 2018. Since the 2012 Sandy Hook school shooting, there have been more than 1,600 mass shootings in the United States, killing over 1,800 people and injuring over 6,400 more. On February 14th, 2018, a student walked into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, and shot and killed 17 students and staff. When I saw this on the news, I was horrified. The idea that this could happen to our high schools in Garrett County terrified me. I spoke to one of my peers, Paige Smith, and we both decided that something needed done. And the first step that we took was I contacted my fellow student members of the board throughout Maryland, and we discussed what we should be doing. Many of them had already been talking to their boards of education, and they were writing resolutions and writing letters to their Board of Eds addressing school safety, mental health support for students and staff, and the rights of students to voice their opinions on school safety. So Paige and I met and we wrote a letter and we drafted a resolution, which we first took to our principal to see his views on that, and he agreed that school safety is a #1 priority in Garrett County Public Schools. We then met with Ms. Baker and presented her with both of these and got her opinions and input on what we had written, and she passed it on to you all. And I want to thank the Board of Ed for seeing the importance in addressing this issue and taking our concerns seriously. So now I'd like to read the resolution. Stand. Council stand.
However you'd like to.
The Garrett County Board of Education resolution supporting the student voice regarding school safety. Whereas the Garrett County Board of Education recognizes that the events in Parkland, Florida have served as a nationwide call to action to address school safety as well as the power of the student voice. And whereas the board wholeheartedly believes in the right of all students to feel safe in school. And whereas the board fully supports students voicing their opinions in diverse ways, whether in or out of school. Whereas the board supports greater school safety and the rights of students to peacefully voice their perspectives in our schools and our society. And whereas the board supports enhanced mental health supports for students and staff. And whereas the board encourages educators, families, and the community to engage in and facilitate discussions about school violence issues. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of Garrett County supports student voice regarding student safety in the Garrett County Public School System. And be it further resolved that this resolution be adopted by the Garrett County Board of Education on this date, March 13th, 2018.
Is there a motion to approve the resolution? So moved. Motion by Mr. Woods. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Siebel. Discussion.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Cheyenne. We had a difficult meeting, didn't we? I guess she knows I feel the same way. And I did pass it along to the board. And I want to thank you as well. Each school has decided to kind of recognize tomorrow, as we know, is a nationwide observance. And each school is kind of decided to approach that differently. I know at Southern, you're going to observe a 17 minutes of silence in honor of the students. And at Northern, they're going to honor the students by wearing the colors of the school. So each student, at your resolution, each student, they are expressing themselves in their own way. So I just wanted to add my thanks for adopting the resolution as well. Sorry.
Further discussion?
Northern's going to wear the colors and they're going to gather in an assembly in the gym.
Right, there, yeah.
No, I just wanted to express how proud I am of our students, Cheyenne, student council, other students for taking a passionate interest in the political issues facing our country and realizing that politics is not this kind of stale thing that's in books, but something that can be changed. And I applaud your optimism for believing that you can make this world a better place. And I encourage the administration to continue to find ways to accommodate and nurture the students' development as they grow into the young adults and citizens, kind of the active citizens we want them to be. So again, I applaud your efforts, Cheyenne, and your colleagues.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I think we're all very proud of you, very proud of you, and all the students who have taken a part in doing something. You are doing exactly what we hoped you would do. As teachers, our great hope is that you will leave the school a better citizen. And by doing what you're doing, you are leaving the school as a better citizen.
All those in favor of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. It is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cheyenne.
All right, you're back on. Student board member report.
We're going to take a picture of Cheyenne and the resolution.
Yeah, I think that would be great. So we could do that.
Yeah, sure.
The whole board.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody wants to be. Here, you move over here, and I'll do it.
Okay, back to you.
Thank you. Northern Middle School held their annual Drive for Heart, where they collected items like Q-tips and paper towels to donate to the organization throughout the past month. They're also beginning their Relay for Life teams in each grade. Northern High School had a Valentine's Day fundraiser where students purchased paper hearts, wrote kind messages on them, and they were placed around the school. Southern Middle School is working on petitioning for a clear water bottle policy in their school, as they're not currently allowed to have any water bottles in their classrooms. They also did a Valentine's Day fundraiser and are planning a March dance and are starting up their recycling program again. Southern High School recently held their winter homecoming dance and are planning their spring blood drive. We're also attempting to get cords for student council members at graduation. In the past month, GCASC sent a group of students from both high schools and both middle schools to Advocacy Day in Annapolis, where we toured the Maryland State House, sat in on one of their sessions, met with both Delegate Beitzel and Senator Edwards, and toured the governor's mansion. We are also coordinating a lip balm drive to support MASC's charity for this year, Finish Sarcoma. And I would like to thank Mr. Hoover for his donation today. We appreciate that. And this Saturday, March 17th, I am helping host MASC's first Women's Leadership Forum in Washington County. Students from all over Maryland are invited to come celebrate International Women's Month by learning about women in leadership. We will be collecting feminine hygiene products to be donated to the Garrett County Dove Center. Lastly, we are planning our spring General Assembly meeting, where we will be having candidate speeches for next year's student member of the board and those applying for GCASC officer positions. We will be holding officer elections there as well, and the results will be announced at the end of the day. Whenever I have a definite date for that, I will let you all know.
Thank you. You guys didn't get to announce this last year, didn't you?
We weren't able to go last year because we went to a different MASC event that was conflicting with that, and so because of the time frame, we weren't able to go. But in previous years, we have.
Okay.
Any other questions for Cheyenne? Thank you very much, Cheyenne. Appreciate it. Board member updates? Anything board members would like to share? All right, there's your chess. All right. MABE Board of Directors nominations. So we received a letter from MABE regarding requests for nominations. Is there anyone who would like to serve in this capacity? Or anyone that would like to nominate another member to serve in that capacity?
Can we do that?
I guess you could do it and they can say no. Okay. This is your chance, so no volunteers here. All right, that is there. We have a few items there for our informational items, so the school activities and the home and school connection. And with that, we will need to return to executive session. Is there a motion to return to executive session for the reasons that was stipulated earlier? So moved. Motion by Mr. Woods. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Rinker. I'll give that one to you. And those who, any discussion? Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. We'll be in executive session. We'll take a 5-minute break.